It is the latest model of the Unicorn series, kind of deviating from the norm as a passive healer or supporter, instead focusing on offense. It is UNI03 Strikehorn, with a kit of field repair, double countdown, multi-legs, and the leg ability of Through Fight, which gives a chance for melee attacks to ignore defense when attacking. Now, as an event reward in the incoming event at time of recording, this means Strikehorn is going to be an absolute must-have and sought-after model for a number of reasons, not even touching on the fact that he alone is also a free model, which means just participating in the event will get you him with very minimal effort required. Now, contrary to how most unicorn types are in his series, instead focusing on healing or stat cleanse, Strikehorn, much like his name, instead focuses on hitting the enemy where it hurts as part of the Select Corps' elite force in this case, and bearing their sigil. Field Repair is a healing-based skill and his only tie to his motif of the unicorn and his previous family members. But simply put, Field Repair will restore lost HP to damage but unbroken parts relative to the leg's mastery on the terrain. So if you are on a terrain of A rank or S rank, you will receive a lot of healing but if you have a very high healing skill. But if you're on a terrain where you're, say, B rank or lower, or even have very little healing skill in the metal, you probably won't get much back, if at all. So it makes it a very unique healing skill in the case where it does matter very especially where your legs are and how good your terrain is. Countdown, which we've started seeing fairly more recently in terms of the newer bots such as Leader Colonel or Dan King, but simply put, Countdown is a very unique ailment skill that, once inflicted on the target, will set them with a timer at 4. The first hit knocking it down to 3. If that timer can reach a tick of 0, no matter how healthy the target is or how close to dying the target is, when that timer reaches 0, it is good night to that target. No reviving at that point, no healing, it is instant shutdown, which can make for a very swift end to any particularly dangerous foes on the field if you can get that timer ticking down fast enough. Now, one thing to mention with Countdown, however, is that it is a status ailment, which means that it can be negated or nullified by anyone that is using Stat Cleanse, so that is something to be very mindful of when using Countdown in any form or fashion. Multi-legs means that Strikehorn will have very moderately solid coverage across most terrains, arguably one of the next best under Biped in many cases, and even for a free model, the leg stats themselves are actually pretty solid too. With a heavy limit of 2, it puts them in very solid versatility across most fields very well, and as well as the case that you can use them very easily in any given situation, even if the legs have an emphasis and preference towards melee attacks. But with the stats, packing a base mobility of 828 is very good and definitely upper tier compared to where most other multi-legs can be, especially conventional ones that you can get either early on or say in the Spotlight banner or any Fierce battles. Now that is unfortunately where a lot of the advantages to Strikehorn end, unfortunately, given that even with a evade of 921, not too bad with dodging or grazing, but a melee resist of 931 and a shoot resist of 798 does mean that Strikehorn is going to be moderately squishy. Not enough to say that, 1 or 2 hits will kill him quickly, but he is definitely going to be taking a somewhat more noticeable amount of damage, both from incoming melee and especially shooting skills, so caution would be advised if you do choose to use his legs. But across the board though, he is moderately solid and tanky as a warhorse, I suppose in this case would be expected to be. Head at almost 3900, almost 4000 HP, arms at about 3300 each, and legs at about 3500. Very solid HP pool, something you really can't go wrong with using, whether that be as pure set or as mixed parts. Now, even though the damage on Countdown might also be considerably low in, say, the mid-700s or low 800s, that is completely normal, and honestly, I would advocate for low damage in that point, because as an ailment, Countdown does not need to deal a lot of damage. All it has to do is just tick that timer down to 0. That being said, as a pure set score, I do have to rate Strikehorn a very solid 7 out of 10 across the board. He can definitely and very easily spell doom for a lot of dangerous targets quickly as long as he can stay on them. Granted that someone on the other team is not using Stat Cleanse to hinder his progress. And for any points where he does end up taking damage, as long as he has very solid healing skill on his metal and he's on a compatible terrain, he can arguably make it back moderately easy with field repair, even if it has a limited number of uses. As mixed parts, I do have to rate him just a little higher at a 7.5 out of 10, given that even though he can work decently well by himself or with allies as a pure set, mixed parts is where he really shines though, because if you choose to make use of countdown in a team, it is best recommended that you can spread the parts across the team so that you can all team up on one particular enemy in say 2 or even 3 turns to kill them faster instead of say 4 or 5 with just one bot knocking them down instead. And as mentioned, his legs are honestly very solid too, definitely upper tier, especially as a free model and an event reward no less, which means you really have no excuse to why you were not able to collect him, and once you do have Strikehorn, you definitely will appreciate having him.